Welcome to Clauses and Phrases. Now I know this says Unit 3.5, but we decided to stick this one before we talk about simple and compound sentences. So let's move on. The first thing that you're going to do today is you're going to download this Clauses and Phrases full packet PDF. It includes all of the handout in one handy packet. Now, of course, you won't have access to this one, but you also will notice here that there are all of these practices that you might use. This is something that my student teacher used last year that we'll probably use for mastery as well. Okay, let's hop on over to the actual PowerPoint that we're going to be looking at today and start our screencast. You might want to pull up the screencast on one screen and the Clauses and Phrases packet, all handouts that you see right here, on the other part of the screen. Okay, I made my own split screen, so let's go ahead and go down through the PowerPoint. You should have both of these pulled up. So the three types of phrases are prepositional, which we've talked about a lot this year, verb phrases, which we've also covered, and appositive phrases, which we have mentioned a few times. Phrases do not contain verbs, except obviously the verb phrases, hello, but phrases cannot stand alone as complete sentences. They're different from fragments, but they're similar in the sense that they're not complete sentences. Now, as far as parts of speech, we see a couple of sentences here. So you're going to be marking the subject, the verb, prepositional phrases, adjectives, and also the direct object in this case. So the puck sailed, if you look on your worksheet, you have the puck sailed past the defender and over the crossbar, and the Indy car from Jimmy Johnson's team crossed the finish line in a flash. If you need to hit the pause button, go ahead, but please go ahead and mark the subject, the verb, prepositional phrases, just cross them out, adjectives, which could also be in prepositional phrases, and then also you will have a direct object here in one of them. Anyway, okay. Here are your answers. So you can see that we have our direct object in the second one, and you can just go ahead and check your work there real quick. And number 3. Okay, this part should be pretty easy for you because this is still reviewing. Now, verb phrases, we've talked about linking, helping, and action verbs, and we know this already, but we can call is sleeping, has been sleeping, will be sleeping. These are all verb phrases. Now, appositive phrases, and now we're down on number 5 over here. An appositive is a noun that renames the noun, which is usually right next to it. So if I say, Tiana, my neighbor, then my neighbor is the appositive phrase. You'll notice that in each of these sentences, we set off the appositive phrase with commas. Sometimes it's just a word, sometimes it's a phrase. You can write your own sentence with an appositive or not. That's something that we're not going to worry too much about right now. Let me scroll down on this. We are now to number 6, and you should be on this screen. So again, notice that there are no verbs in a phrase, unless it's a verb phrase, obviously. And can you identify the part of speech for me? What about cupcakes? So do you recall that this is actually an indirect object, and this is actually the direct object? Okay, you'll need to know these for next year. Okay. All right, well, let's move on in our PowerPoint here. We have, since there are no verbs in phrases, except for verb phrases, I'll keep saying that, phrases cannot stand on their own. So we have a couple of sentences. We have Daphne, the girl with red hair, likes Fred. You'll see on your worksheet that I made a mistake and I put Josie on there, but I was wrong, it's Daphne. Shaggy drives around the block in a flowered van. And Scooby has been looking for Scooby snacks during the entire show. So take a moment and find the phrases in those sentences. You can circle them and then tell what kind they are on the line next to it. You might need to hit the pause button here, and then we'll go right to the next answer. Okay, so here we go. The girl is the girl with red hair is our whole appositive phrase. There's a prepositional phrase thrown in there as well. We have around the block and in a flowered van as our prepositional phrases. And we have a verb phrase in number 3. You'll see that in purple. And 2 prepositional phrases, one in red and one in blue. Were you able to identify all of those? All right, we're going to move on to Part B now. Now, this is the section about clauses. The dependent clauses are also called the subordinate clauses, and then we also call them independent clauses as far as the other kind goes. So we call these a lot in class just DCs and ICs, and it just makes life a little bit easier. We're on 7 now, over on the left, and you'll be filling this part out next, number 7. So a clause does include a verb or a verb phrase, and often a subject as well. And I just mentioned the 2 types of clauses. Now, independent clauses are independent. They can stand alone, whereas the dependent clause, well, it just needs somebody else to lean on. So the dependent clause is really not a complete sentence, and that's where you're going to get frags marked on your papers for sentence fragment. So go ahead and stop and take notes here and make sure that you have the box in number 8 filled out before we resume. Okay, so going on again to independent clauses, we see here that, just looking at the PowerPoint for a moment, that the independent clause does form a complete thought. Now, throughout our entire packet, and indeed throughout the entire unit, we're going to be underlining independent clauses only 1 time, and we'll underline dependent clauses 2 times. That will probably be how you are tested on them as well. So notice Elizabeth I was the 2nd daughter of King Henry VIII. It's a complete thought. It can stand by itself. It's a complete sentence. The weather in Pennsylvania is often frigid and blustery in the winter. Same. There are some predicate adjectives in there too, just as a little side note. Now, your dependent clauses cannot stand alone, and it has to rely on an independent clause somewhere else in the sentence, and we'll be underlining these twice. Dependent clauses that are not attached to an independent clause are called fragments. We usually don't do them, although some writers use them for dramatic purposes. An example is, although we may enjoy the snow. Now, if my sentence is stopped right there, that would be an incomplete thought. Because I can save time and watch Netflix. Still an incomplete sentence by itself. But because these dependent clauses are attached to the independent clause, they are still considered an okay sentence. If I just said, when the weather forecasters predict ice, period, you should be left wondering, like, okay, where's the rest of the sentence? You'll see I have provided it here, and that's what makes these good sentences and not fragments. So if you can take a look at the sentences in number 9, we're going to go to this part right now. You hit the pause button and mark whether or not you think these clauses are ICs or DCs. Hit the pause button, do that, and then come back. Okay, so you're back. Here are the answers to that number 9 set of boxes there, and you'll notice that if I just walk up to you out of the blue and I say, when the cat played with the mouse, and I turn around and walk away, you're going to be left thinking I've got some, issues. Because I've just started to say something to you and then completely just blanked and walked away. So that's something important to remember about dependent clauses too. Now, we want to be able to create grammatically correct sentences. We want to be able to write more sophisticated sentences, and we also want to avoid run-ons and commas, places, and fragments that can make us look, well, a little less educated. So writing complete sentences really is important, and that's why this is such an important unit. Here we have a grammatically correct, very long, 46-word sentence. While Queen Elizabeth, England's great queen, had many hopeful suitors during her lifetime, she chose never to marry because she viewed the country of England as her husband, and she dedicated all of her time, energy, and devotion to that which she held sacred, her domain. So you might be wondering, but I guess that is absolutely correct. It's important that you're able to write longer sentences. They don't need to be 46-word sentences, but they will be more sophisticated the more that you write in the order that you get. Now we have a final practice here on our notes section, and you're going to tell me if the bolded section, the bolded clause, is an IC or a DC. So you'll see this over here on your paper, right here the bottom of page 2. Please hit the pause button and complete it, and then come back. Okay, here are your answers. You'll notice that a lot of these are DCs, and that's fine. And I do want to point out that the next to the last sentence, if you just say, that was wrecked yesterday on the bridge, all by itself, then yes, you could use the word that as the subject, and that could be a complete sentence. But we're not using it all by itself. It's in the context of, this is the car that was wrecked yesterday on the bridge. And so you can see it's identifying the car. Okay, so what do we not want to do? We don't want to write fragments, comma splices, or run-ons. What are these? A fragment is a dependent clause punctuated as if it were a sentence. A comma splice is an IC, comma, IC. That means you're putting a comma in between two independent clauses, and that comma does not belong there. A run-on sentence is exactly the same except without the comma. You can see the example there. We were dressed for the weather, we still froze. There needs to be some punctuation between weather and we. Now, if you just put a comma in between weather and we, you're just creating a different error, and you're just creating a comma splice. So we do want to learn the correct way to correct these sentences, but we're not going to do that in this PowerPoint just yet. Okay, so you're identifying the bold clauses as ICs and DCs. You'll see this, this one is the one that's at the bottom of page 2. So George Washington Carver was a great agricultural chemist. Is that all an IC or a DC? If you chose to say it was an IC, you're absolutely correct. Hit the pause button, do the rest of these, and then come back. Okay, I hope you did hit the pause button and complete those. So you'll see here that we have a combination of ICs and DCs. Check each one. As you hit the pause button, check each one, and then come back so I can explain to you what to do next. Finally, we have met our targets for today. You can see that it's very important to write complete sentences, and that's something that we've worked on this period. Okay, so your homework, now that you have completed the first 2 pages in the notes section, is to complete page 3, which I'm showing you here on the left. And you're also going to complete page 4. Some of these get a little tricky, so do be careful. There are a lot of compound sentences down here, which means you'll have an independent clause, comma, conjunction, and another independent clause. So do watch for that sentence pattern. I will explain split clauses the next time we talk about this, but briefly, you might have the beginning of an independent clause interrupted by a dependent clause, and then the rest of the independent clause. If we look at number 6 here, you'll see one of those. The teen battle of the books is our beginning of our independent clause. Begins soon is where we hop over to finish the independent clause, but it's interrupted by a dependent clause, which is a local contest at the library. Whether or not this dependent clause is essential to the sentence or not determines whether or not we use these 2 commas here. That's something that we can explore later. When you get to the end of number 13, please save it. You are finished, and you won't need to look at this again until next Monday. Thanks very much for your attention. Bye-bye.